RFK Jr. proves he's just another swamp monster. And in this tweet, Fiorella Isabel, friend of the show, friend of the network, says RFK Jr. says the quiet part out loud and fully destroys his campaign. I'm not going to read the quote that he said because I'm going to play the video, but I'll read the rest of what she says. And Fiorella goes on to say, would love to see all the people who gave me crap about RFK Jr. Zionism tell me, quote, Israel-Palestine is just one issue. Now that we're on the brink of World War III, happy to have never supported his Zionist warmongering, unhappy that my fear of U.S. funding of more wars and genocide is true. So let's listen. This is RFK Jr. sort of talking about why Israel is important to us. Genocidal Israel. Here is RFK Jr. sounding very much like a imperialist, hegemonic warmonger.
And Israel is critical. And the reason it's critical is because it's a bulwark for us in the Mideast. It's almost like having an aircraft carrier in the Mideast. It's our oldest ally. It's been our ally for 75 years. It has been an incredible ally for us in terms of the technology, the exchange. And, and building the Iron Dome, which we paid a lot for, has also taught us enormously about how to defend ourselves at home from missiles. So those military expenditures are all going. 75% of it goes to U.S. companies under the agreement, under the MOU. But if you look at what's happening in the Mideast now, Iran is now the closest allies to Iran are Russia and China. Iran also controls all of Venezuela's oil. Hezbollah is in Venezuela. They have propped up the Maduro regime, and so they control that oil supply. BRICS, Saudi Arabia is now joining BRICS. So those countries will control 90% of the oil in the world. If Israel disappears, the vacuum in the Mideast, which is, Israel is our ambassador, it's our presence, our beachhead in the Mideast, and it gives us ears and eyes in the Mideast. It gives us intelligence, it gives us the capacity to influence affairs.
So, in exchange for having a strategic position in the oil-rich region, we just have to agree to a little genocide. That's all RFK Jr. is saying. How can you be non-establishment and be pro-military industrial complex? That's a new one. Let's listen some more before I comment some more. I won't comment yet.
Affairs in the Mideast. If Israel disappeared, Russia and China would be controlling the Mideast, and they control 90% of the world's oil supply, and that would be cataclysmic for U.S.
What is he saying by saying it this way? So why are you talking about Israel in a way to mean the United States needs Israel, not because of democracy, not because it's their homeland, but because strategically it gives us essentially a military base in an oil-rich area? How is RFK Jr. non-establishment? This is our longest, biggest ally, is Israel. Longest, biggest, how much more establishment can you be? It's so funny because the same government that he calls out for corruption is the same government that's executing Israel policy. How can the government, RFK Jr., how can the government that you're calling as being corrupt and bought off, how can they not be that when it comes to Israel? Well, listen to this last part. Once again, I feel like there's 2 points I was missing because I thought I had 3.
Defend ourselves at home from missiles. So those military expenditures are all going. 75% of it goes to U.S. companies under the agreement, under the MOU.
When people keep saying this as if this is a good thing, Well, the money's going to U.S. companies. How does that help the average American worker?
But if you look at what's happening in the Mideast now, Iran is now the closest allies to Iran are Russia and China.
Now, listen to what he's saying. He's non-establishment. Who are the axis of evil that establishment people talk about all the time? Russia, China, Iran. Who is he talking about? Yet we are acting like this guy is non-establishment. BRICS
and China. Iran also controls all of Venezuela's oil. Hezbollah is in Venezuela. They have propped up the Maduro regime, and so they control that oil supply. BRICS, Saudi Arabia is now joining BRICS. So those countries will control 90% of the oil in the world. If Israel disappears, the vacuum in the Mideast, which is, Israel is our ambassador, it's our presence, our beachhead in the Mideast, and it gives us ears and eyes in the Mideast. It gives us
ears and eyes in the Middle East. That sounds like the real reason we advocate for Israel, not because of some sort of Jewish homeland. It's because of what this guy, this so-called non-establishment Pearson, is speaking very establishment vernacular. This guy is just not the greatest, in my opinion. This guy, RFK Jr. I think there's only one person who dislikes him more than me, and that's probably Sabrina. Maybe the only person that dislikes this freaking turd sandwich more than me. So let's move to the other part. I was going to accompany an article, but we don't have the time. We're going to stay on RFK. Here is Nick. Israel-Palestine isn't a big deal. This line from RFK Jr. supporters aged like milk. And then this headline, and like I said, this is from Sabby. Sabby says, RFK Jr. is defending Bill Ackman because Bill was one of his donors. Why is RFK Jr. taking money from hedge fund manager? This guy is playing people. Investor Bill Ackman, David Sachs' PAC donated to RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is saying, bravo to him. It's time to hold college administrators responsible for the epidemic on campus, anti-Semitism, by insisting on zero tolerance. So if you didn't understand, Bill Ackman is calling for censorship, and RFK Jr. is shouting him out for that. And that's because Bill Ackman is a donor to RFK Jr., as Sabby points out here. And then it's just some other reaction about the hedge fund donation and the support RFK and vice versa. It was Scott Horton. Last Friday, RFK's entire field team, led by Dana Rohrabacher's wife, all quit. Maybe he should stop taking bad advice from foreign powers about restricting the scarce right of Americans to say whatever we want. Like, for example, go F yourself, Mr. Kennedy. Disgraceful. Here is Danny Haifong. RFK Jr. says the Quiet Part Law. Israel is a stronghold for us. It's like having an aircraft carrier in the Middle East. If Israel disappears, Russia, China, and BRICS countries will control 90% of the world's oil, and this will be a disaster. Now we're going to move to the other part, but I do want to play this first. This is talking about RFK Jr.'s team quitting. This is Jimmy Dore.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tweeted out, bravo to Bill Ackerman. It's time to hold college administrations responsible for the epidemic of campus anti-Semitism by insisting on zero tolerance policies. So he's coming out against free speech now. So he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. It's
not. By the way, I'm sure, what is the anti-Semitism? Did they pull down posters of the missing hostages?
I don't know what it is.
That's the one I keep seeing, and I keep going, but why are there posters here? Are we supposed to
But the story here is, last Friday, RFK Jr.'s entire field team, led by Representative Dana Rohrabacher's wife, all quit.
How many people's that?
And that's Scott Horton. He's the Mr. Anti-War. And
Maybe get Peter down.
and so maybe get Peter down. So at the same time, his former campaign manager put this out. This is Dennis Kucinich's Substack, The Math of Murder. The subjugation and annihilation of innocent civilians bombed into the dust of collateral damage does not support America, Israel, or the West. Claims for moral high ground and a path to peace. So a lot of people think that this is over RFK's rabid, crazy mental defense of the indefensible happening in Israel.
And I mean, obviously that's the case, regardless of what they're saying. And I don't know what they're saying. Obviously, Dennis Kucinich and the team leaving, it's over Israel. It's because of Israel. And it's not a coincidence that he puts out this article. This is Dennis Kucinich writing about what's happening in Palestine, Israel. And then you have, I just showed you, then you have Robert F. Kennedy literally advocating on the other side of this. Literally advocating the opposite of what Dennis Kucinich is calling out in this article on his Substack.
And Palestine right now, it is indefensible. And RFK Jr. gave a speech maybe a week or two ago where he was anti-China, anti-Iran, and anti-Venezuela, and he combined them all together. And it's just the opposite of what I thought he was.
Was he Sirhan? Did they just flip his murder switch?
Something happened. So here's what Dennis Kucinich wrote. He said on Tuesday, October 31st, 2023, the government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu bombed a Palestinian refugee camp with 100,000 inhabitants, producing a hellscape of casualties, 50 dead, 150 injured, with buildings in collapse at the periphery of a massive bomb crater. The stated public intention was to kill a single Hamas commander.
Is this the one that broke Wolf Blitzer?
Well, that's the one that broke Wolf Blitzer. There are 2 million Palestinians warehoused in the sliver of land 26 miles long, between 2 to 7 miles wide. A containment camp known as the Gaza Strip, holding indigenous peoples of the region hostage. Mr. Netanyahu has vowed to wipe out Hamas, which is estimated to have at least 40,000 members. If the ratio of 50 to 1 holds up, that is 50 Palestinians will die for every Hamas member killed. Then
That's
every
insane.
single Palestinian in Gaza would be killed. So if you go by that metric, this is not without possibility. Perhaps the colonizers' plan.
Well, okay, it doesn't have to go that way. If Egypt would just step up and take they're good with either way. Either you can take all the people into your countries, or we can kill them all.
Or we'll just kill them all.
If you feel so bad about them, why don't you help them?
So the further prosecution of this war is, by the way, they do. Syria has taken in over 500,000 Palestinians.
Yeah. So has Europe, and they're all protesting now, and they're all going, "How's this happening?"
I think there's 2 million in Jordan. I think there's 2 million Palestinians. So this idea that why don't they? But we're going to get to that because that's going to be coming up in a Norman Finkelstein clip that's going to be coming up later. The further prosecution of this war is counterproductive to the security and survival of Israel and its citizens, who live in an increasingly hostile environment, as the images of the plight of Gazans are broadcast to billions worldwide and to hundreds of millions of enraged Muslims and Arabs in the region. So what this war is doing, this all idea is we're going to wipe out Hamas. Oh, and then I guess you won't have any more terrorists, but you're going to make 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 more terrorists in the process of trying to wipe out 40,000. Do you understand? So this is there's the thing called blowback. That's the CIA's own term for when they go and mess things up and kill a lot of people and they create terrorists.
Well, Jimmy,
that's what the United States has been doing since 9/11, creating more terrorists worldwide by wiping out Libyans, Syrians, Afghanistans, Yemenis, Sudanese. And so that's what. So this war is actually making Israel way less safe in the eyes of the entire world, because you're turning the entire world against you.
And that's the point that we've made here many times on RBN. Specifically, Nick makes all the time. Zionism and the practice of it and the process of it is what makes Jews unsafe around the world. That's what makes Jews unsafe.